Symbology of the Bible, Volume 2. The Parable of Isaiah, 2. As Pastor Murray often said, the Word is pregnant. The last article on this parable never quite got to it, since there was much to discuss as it was introduced. The meat of the parable is Isaiah 11 verses 6 to 11. Isaiah 11 verse 6, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. 7, and the cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. 8, and the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice den. 9, they shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. 10, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. 11, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time, to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. In verse 6 we see a pattern, a predator and a prey, and subsequent verses have this context. The Hebrew words behind the English for the given animals in verse 6 are 1. Wolf.
Ze'ev, H2061. Zeb, wolf. Etymology, from an unused root, meaning to be yellowed. Or, Ze'ev, H2062. Zeb, Zeb, a Midianitish prince. Etymology, the same as H2061.
2. Lamb.
Kivis, H3532. Cabes, a ram, just old enough to butt. Etymology, from an unused root meaning to dominate. Or, Kivish, H3534. Cabes, a footstool, as trodden upon, footstool. Etymology, from H3533. And H3533. Kavash, kabaz, to tread down, hence, negatively, to disregard, positively, to conquer, subjugate, violate. Etymology, a primitive root.
And 4. Dwell.
Gul, H1481. Gur, properly, to turn aside from the road, for a lodging or any other purpose, i.e., sojourn as a guest. Also, to shrink, fear, as in a strange place. Also, to gather for hostility, as afraid. Etymology, a primitive root.
Often, it is more appropriate to use the meaning of a word rather than the proper name, but sometimes it may prove fruitful to go the other way. For example, who is the Zeb that was a Midian priest? Zeb appears alongside Oreb as an enemy, and both are slain. But to set the scene, Judges 7 verse 12, and the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east lay along in the valley like grasshoppers for multitude, and their camels were without number, as the sand by the seaside for multitude. We see the symbology of the grasshoppers here, and recall that Jethro, the priest, was a resident in Midian. Here in Zeb, we have another example of a false one, a prince of some idol, a deity with no legs to move. And here is where we find his fate. Judges 7 verse 23, and the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali and out of Asher and out of all Manasseh, and pursued after the Midianites. 24, and Gideon sent messengers throughout all Mount Ephraim, saying, Come down against the Midianites. and take before them the waters unto Bethbara and Jordan. Then all the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together, and took the waters unto Bethbara and Jordan. 25. And they took 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeb, and they slew Oreb upon the rock Oreb, and Zeb they slew at the winepress of Zeb, and pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side of Jordan. Looking through the Hebrew of the first part of verse 6, above, we see that the false priests and princes that turn people away from the true path will be conquered and trodden down in the winepress and become Yahovah's footstool. Another observation is the Mount of Ephraim. The symbology of mountains indicates that Ephraim was the most powerful tribe of the northern kingdom, the son of Joseph, who received Jacob's blessing. The location of the physical mount, synonymous with Mount Ebal, the highest peak, is shown below left, and the city of Ephraim is much closer to Jerusalem. Returning to verse 6, the Hebrew word translated lamb is a ram, and Daniel gives a prophecy of a ram. Daniel 8 verse 3, Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. 4. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will, and became great. This ram is not an animal, but represents a kingdom with 2 crowns. The ram is Ayil.
Isle, properly, strength, hence, anything strong, specifically, a chief, politically. Also, a ram, from his strength, a pilaster, as a strong support, an oak or other strong tree, etymology, from the same as H193. KJV, mighty, mighty man, lintel, oak, post, ram, tree.
The primary application is as a descriptor of anything with might and strength, and is often used to describe a nation or kingdom. It was circa this prophecy that the Medo-Persian Empire was at its strongest, originating in the east and pushing in all the other directions, as they conquered the Babylonian territory after supplanting them. The ancient empires of the area are shown below, with the territories conquered by the Persians indicated. Among the territories conquered was the Medes, which is also shown on the map. Many believe the Medo-Persian alliance represents the 2 horns, with Persia the larger and more powerful horn. The Midianites, who were also conquered, were no doubt confederate with the ram, with 2 horns. Oreb and Zeb are specifically identified in the book of Psalms. Psalm 83 verse 2, For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Psalm 83 verse 9, Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabin, at the brook of Kison. 10, Which perished at Ender, they became as dung for the earth. 11, Make their nobles like Oreb and like Zeb, yea, all their princes as Zebah and as Zalmunna. Let us dissect these 2 names. Oliv, Oreb, the name of a Midianite and of a cliff near the Jordan. Etymology, the same as H6158. We have looked at this name before, but to review.
H6158, the primary root. Oliv, Oreb, a raven, from its dusky hue. Etymology, from H6150. And H6150, the secondary root. Arav, Arab, to grow dusky at sundown. Etymology, a primitive root, identical with H6148, through the idea of covering with a texture. KJV, be darkened, toward evening, evening. And H6148, the tertiary root. Arab, to braid, i.e. intermix, technically to traffic, as if by barter. Also give to be security, as a kind of exchange. Etymology, a primitive root.
We see a raven, an unclean bird, a scavenger, and those who live in the dark after sunset, willing to mix with the iron. The traffickers of Revelation, Revelation 18 verse 23, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. For Zeeb, we see it is a compound word.
Ze'ev, Ze'eb.
We can identify a couple candidates for the first syllable.
Zo, zo, this or that. Etymology, 4H2088. KJV, as well as another it, this, that, thus and thus. Or zua, zua, properly, to shake off, i.e. figuratively, to agitate, as with fear. Etymology, a primitive root. KJV, move, tremble, vex.
And for the second syllable, we would use eb.
Ev, a green plant. Etymology, from the same as H24. KJV, greenness, fruit.
We could propose an interpretation as those of the night and all others who agitate and vex the green plants. There is no need to expound on the green plants since we know that symbology. Another subject to look at are the meanings of Ziba and Zalmunna. 1. Ziba.
Zivach, sacrifice. Zebach, a Midianitish prince. Etymology, the same as H2077. KJV, Ziba. And H2077. Zivach, Ziba, properly, a slaughter, i.e. the flesh of an animal. By implication, a sacrifice, the victim or the act. Etymology, from H2076. And H2076. Zavach, Zaba, to slaughter an animal, usually in sacrifice. Etymology, a primitive root. KJV, kill, offer, do, sacrifice, slay.
So with Zeeb and Ziba, we have a prince and a prince of darkness. One who, it appears, has taken the priest's responsibility of the sacrificial offerings. The ones who vex Yahovah's garden of green things, the trees, barley, wheat, grapes. And we have a petition in Psalm 83 to make them and the others like Yah's sacrifice, the true lamb who they crucified. That is, to appoint or subject them to the same treatment. Continuing. 2. Zalmunna.
Zalmunna. Zalmunna, shade has been denied. A Midianite. Etymology, from H6738 and H4513. KJV, Zalmunna.
It is amazing to discover this meaning. This is the petition of Psalm 83. Appoint the princes and priests of darkness, those who vex Yahovah's garden, to the same treatment as the Lamb of God, and deny them shade from the sun when he rises. The verses from Isaiah, cited as the parable of Isaiah, have a meaning on the surface. When the child of Revelation comes again, there will be peace. Even the tribe of Benjamin, the wolf, will be reunited with the lamb, and the lions will no longer seek to tear up the sheep. However, the deeper meaning reveals why the book is bitter. To those who digest it, there is a message of destruction of the wicked and those who follow their path. This is the two-edged sword, the word of Yahweh. One edge will reap those green things, and the other edge will reap the tares for the fiery furnace. It is all here in the book, and failure to discover and learn it will be attributed to spiritual laziness. 1 Corinthians 9 verse 24. Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize? So run, that ye may obtain. 25. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. 26. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly. So fight I, not as one that beateth the air. 27. But I keep unto my body, and bring it into subjection, lest that, by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. Matthew 25 verse 26. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strawed. 27. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. 28. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. 29. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. 30. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.